When I think of Renaissance paintings, I often picture breathtaking works of art. Masterpieces like Michelangelo's ceilings, Da Vinci's portraits, and Raphael's frescoes. But if we pull back the curtain, we find that their art often served a more sinister purpose. One that shaped how millions of people understood the world around them. So the question begs, what if paintings taught you what to believe? The art of the Renaissance wasn't simply about beauty, it was also about influence, education, and control, in a period of time when art was one of the few vessels for visual storytelling. So let's take a closer look at the hidden purpose of the Renaissance art. Imagine stepping into a cathedral in Florence in the 15th century. Sunlight filters through stained glass, scattering colors across marble floors. The air is thick with incense, echoing with distant hymns of prayer. Above you, towering frescoes and gilded ceilings tell stories of saints, miracles, and divine power. But these walls aren't just stories of worship, they're carefully crafted imagery of influence. Back then, Florence was flourishing with art, where every square, chapel, and gallery became part of a grand visual language. Artists, thinkers, and merchants hasted through busy streets, exchanging ideas that would literally shape the future of Europe. And at the center of this cultural storm stood one family, a dynasty of bankers whose wealth extended into every corner of society. The Medici. They understood something important, namely that art could shape belief. Through grand commissions, they filled Florence's churches and palaces with images that didn't just inspire awe. They told stories of their own legitimacy, divine favor, and political dominance. Paintings became veiled messages and frescoes a declaration of power. So who really were the Medici and how did they wield their influence? At the onset of the Renaissance, Italy wasn't a unified nation. Instead, it was a mosaic of competing city-states. Venice, Milan, Naples, and the Papal States each battled Florence for political and economic dominance. Some relied on military might, others on trade. Florence, however, found its power in finance, and at the center of the rise was the Medici. Originally merchants, the Medicis became bankers in the late 14th century, and their business rapidly expanded under Giovanni de' Medici de' Medici. He laid the foundations of what would become the most powerful bank in Europe. By the mid-15th century, the Medici Bank had branches in major cities like Rome, Venice, London, Bruges, and Geneva. This network gave them unprecedented reach and financial power. The Medici introduced and perfected financial innovations that shaped modern banking. They made double-entry bookkeeping widespread, a revolutionary system for the time that allowed for clearer, more accurate accounting, crucial in managing a web of international transactions. They also popularized the use of credit notes, which allowed merchants to travel without carrying large sums of gold, making Florence an essential hub for European trade. This financial success translated directly into political power. Though they rarely ruled Florence as monarchs, the Medici essentially controlled the city from behind the scenes through a combination of wealth, patronage, and strategic marriages. Cosimo de' Medici, known as Cosimo the Elder, became the de facto ruler of Florence in the early 15th century. He kept a careful balance, avoiding titles that would provoke rival families, while ensuring that no decision was made without Medici approval. The Medici became well-regarded patrons of the arts, funding some of the most iconic works in history. Under their sponsorship, Florence transformed basically into a living gallery. They commissioned architects like Filippo Brunelleschi, who designed the awe-inspiring dome of Santa Maria del Fiore, a feat of engineering that symbolized Florence's innovation. In their later generations, Lorenzo de' Medici continued this tradition of patronage. Lorenzo surrounded himself with some of the greatest minds of his time: Da Vinci, Botticelli, Michelangelo, and Raphael. These artists didn't just produce pretty images, their works carried layers of meaning. Take Botticelli's Adoration of the Magi. On the surface, it depicts the biblical story of the three kings visiting the infant Christ, but when we look closer, we find a striking resemblance between the three wise kings to certain members of the Medici family. Up front, we find Cosimo the Elder as one of the wise kings, receiving blessings from baby Jesus. In the foreground, the two remaining characters appear to be his sons, Piero the Gouty, a name given to him because of his sickly appearance, and Giovanni, who was thought to become Cosimo's probable successor. The three characters form a trinity that hints at their divine position amongst men, while simultaneously being front and center receiving the blessing of the Christ. The name of the painting, Adoration of the Magi, not only sets the stage of the well-known biblical fable of the three wise kings, but also hints towards a charitable organization named Compagnia dei Magi, ran by Lorenzo Medici, which experts believe to be the guy depicted right here. More than anything, this is a brilliant piece of visual propaganda that places the Medici family somewhere in between humanity and God. A real masterclass of storytelling done by Botticelli, who also appears in the painting looking directly at us, breaking the fourth wall, almost as if he's trying to tell us something. Michelangelo was another artist under the Medici's patronage. His talent was recognized early on, and Lorenzo supported his training. Decades later, when his son Giovanni de Lorenzo de' Medici became Pope Leo X, it was Michelangelo who was commissioned to work on the Medici Chapel, as well as parts of St. Peter's Basilica. During his life, Michelangelo created a number of statues displaying the Medici family as timeless rulers, further cementing their position throughout history. Here, the Medici influence reached Rome itself, intertwining art, religion, and politics at the highest possible level. In a deeply Christian society, aligning oneself with the papacy meant aligning with spiritual authority. The Medici Bank was the official banker of the papal court, handling enormous sums of money for the Vatican. This relationship not only made them rich, but also gave them leverage over religious institutions. Two Medici men even became popes, Leo X and Clement VII. Under their leadership, the church became a stage for Medici patronage on a continental scale. Through their commissions, the Medici turned the walls of Florence's cathedrals, chapels, and civic buildings into instruments of persuasion. Frescoes, altarpieces, and sculptures acted as public messages in an age when many couldn't even read. Art communicated power, reinforced Christian teachings, and covertly reminded the public who the real rulers were. What began as a local banking family became a dynasty whose weapons were paintbrushes, chisels, and patronage that were wielded as effectively as any army, reshaping not only Florence, but really the trajectory of Western civilization as a whole. When we look at Renaissance paintings or statues today, it's easy to admire the beauty, composition, and skill of the artists. But behind that beauty lies a deeper story, a history of power, persuasion, and deliberate storytelling. These works weren't created in a vacuum. They were crafted to teach, to inspire, and to influence, shaping the minds of people and reminding them of who held authority in the world. To me, art has always been more than decoration. It molds how we see the world, what we believe, and even who holds the power. Reading about these fascinating stories makes it clear that there's much more to the world of art than what I originally thought. But the questions that matters just as much now as in the Renaissance are these. When you stand before a painting, a sculpture, or even scrolling through your Instagram feed, do you know what it is asking you to think? to feel, to believe? And who is it really that is telling you? If you liked this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and pressing the thumbs up button. And if you did, I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Thank you for watching to the end, and I hope to see you again next time.